Oh my, who? How? This is way too close to my day job, people. We live in a world where everyone wants money. You want money, I want money, but in the video game industry, we are running into a problem. The search for money is running way ahead of the search for quality. Quality is being determined by profitability instead of profitability being the result of quality, which is why the world collectively groans whenever Sony and Ubisoft say live service. It's not just that, though. Even the single-player entries from the AAA sector are demanding $60 to $70 as their price of admission. And that is just, guys, that's so much money. I've yet to see an entry from this sector whose gameplay was equal to its expensive visuals, except maybe for FromSoft games, but I couldn't tell you for sure because it's still $60 damn. Is this really necessary? I mean, Indika has some good visuals to it, and it's only $25. Yes, it's more of a narrative delivery platform than a full game, but still, that's less than half the price. Look, truly, I don't know what goes into a AAA game, but I know I never feel like I'm missing anything with my game choices. The concept of good visuals means more than striving for photorealism. That's like going to an impressionist exhibit and saying you could take better pictures with your phone. Style does not have to be expensive, and high prices do not a good game guarantee. The game we're playing this month is really, really good, and you can't buy it anywhere. Because it's free! That's right, this isn't just a shiny new game, it's a shiny new game that won't cost you a penny. Happy birthday! And this isn't a free-to-play game where the first thing they do is trick you into paying. This is a complete, playable, genuinely free game that will never ask you to buy a cosmetic or a slightly more valuable Bitcoin. So what kind of game is it? It's a stealth game. Okay, last October, I described good stealth sequences as a situation where you need to be undetected, but where being detected wasn't the end of the game. Classic bad stealth situations have someone blow a whistle and throw you back to the start when you're spotted. This is annoying and nobody likes it. Hi, I'm Nobody. In good stealth, being detected creates a new scenario, usually with higher difficulty and higher stakes. You want to avoid being detected not because it means game over, but because it means more and harder work. And a game that takes this rule and interprets it in the most literal way possible is the Werecleaner. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the word masterpiece, like maybe on a beloved video for a game that deserves more love. See, when trades were less distinct from crafts, an artisan had to prove he possessed the skills to pay the bills. That proof, a piece of work demonstrating mastery, was their masterpiece. The word has since come to mean a very good work, or every episode of Inside Job. I'm not over it yet. The Werecleaner, with its roots in a student project, more fully represents that original concept. This is undoubtedly and outstandingly proof that these upcoming developers know how to craft a game. In a sense, this is the cutting edge of game creativity. Developers who have not yet entered the professional field creating something not to make money, but to prove their skills. That's pretty damn cool if you ask me, and I really need to check more of these kinds of games out. Comment if you know some. So what is a Werecleaner? Well, let me introduce you. Meet Kyle. Kyle is a custodian at Howlin, a company that I think produces plushies of a mascot character who just seems to be a wolf, but might also be the future office of this development team making this game. That's meta. But the kids must love it because this is one of the most well-stocked and appointed offices I've ever seen. There's an art room, a game room, a pantry. Seems pretty modern. Too bad telecommuting is better in every way, huh? Kyle needs some flexibility in his hours, for reasons we'll see in about 6 lines. So even though it doesn't pay great, it's an ideal job for him. Unfortunately, it's run by a total prat. After the player gets 1 day of low-stress cleaning, he gets hit with a bombshell. 1 week of mandatory overtime, at night, unpaid. And if he doesn't do it, he doesn't get his check, and he can't pay his rent. Now that sucks in general, but night times are a special challenge for Kyle. That's right, Kyle's a werewolf, a rampaging, carnivorous beast that will slaughter any innocents who get in its way by the light of the full moon. Now normally he's a responsible werewolf and just has no nightlife, but if he's on the street, self-isolation becomes a whole lot harder. So despite the risks, Kyle has to clock in, and he's just praying he doesn't eat anyone for his lunch break. What follows is a darkly joyous take on the stealth game. As you can see, Kyle's wolf form is kind of puppy-like. It's hard to imagine this fuzzy tail wagger could be a threat to anyone. Okay, so that's how it is. Now luckily, Kyle won't go berserk the second he sees a human. In fact, he can have a perfectly pleasant chat with the security guard Daryl as long as he can't see him. But if a human spots him, they'll scream, and Kyle will make a beeline for that human and make a mess. Speaking of messes, Kyle is, of course, a janitor. His job is to clean the place up. Now first I want to draw your attention to the minimap, as this is crucial in guiding Kyle to the target messes, and I missed it the first time I played. You won't find litter all over the place. In fact, aside from the big stuff, the staff are good at cleaning up what they find, something you can use to your advantage. He starts off with a power washer. Controls are kind of like a twin-stick shooter. Point in the direction you want cleaned while moving Kyle to cover the most ground the most efficiently. As the game progresses, messes become larger and more complex, requiring different tools to deal with them. There's also some environmental storytelling going on, but more on that later. Here's the thing about accidentally murdering your coworkers. You're not allowed to do that, especially not repeatedly. So it's not a great idea to leave Anna's body lying around even if she was the one who stumbled on you watering the garden. But as anyone who's ever had to dispose of a body knows, they don't just disappear. Hope you're hungry. And since you're a messy eater, well, you've just made more work for yourself. This is a really cool way to do this. You're never in danger from your coworkers, you are the danger. Stealth in this situation is not meant to safeguard you, it's to safeguard them. So Kyle isn't a villain, he's just a poor schmuck with a disability put in a terrible position by unfeeling corporate greed. But despite that, the formula for good stealth is still upheld. In the most literal sense, being spotted creates a new problem to solve, and the fact that the problem is not unique but the same problem you're already dealing with is a remarkably elegant solution, as the solution to splattered corpses is the same as splattered, what's YouTube's policy on this? And just like the regular messes, when you've finished cleaning them up, you're left with the satisfaction of a job oh, for the love of God, Charlie. Now the game isn't all that hard. It's very keen on giving you information which, for better or worse, makes it easier to tell when coworkers will move around. Whenever a coworker is occupied, a timer will appear over their head. They won't move from that spot or change their orientation until either the timer runs out or something gets their attention. While their routes are all predetermined, you won't know those routes without studying them, which may put you in a position where poor Mason has to accept early retirement. Speaking of, the coworkers are all individually designed characters. I'm kind of surprised by that. More so that they all seem to be named after members of the development team. It would have been easy to put nameless, faceless blobs behind the desks, but they went the extra mile. Just so you know, there is no continuity. If you kill Mason in one level, he'll still be alive for the next. Unfortunate, since it's kind of immersion breaking to be cleaning up Charlie, Ina, and Cerulean's remains when you just cleaned up. You know what, this might take a while, so let's pull up the spoiler section. Or go to this time where we'll talk about how the Werecleaner is exactly like neon white. Here's what you have to understand about Howlin Hugs. It isn't just a company that makes toys, it's a community on the edge of revolution. Ever hear the old trope, when workers want better conditions, higher pay, and shorter hours, the CEO is right there to throw them a pizza party? On the surface, CEO Howl seems to have created a fantastic office. There's a recreation room, a fish tank, model trains that run through the walls. There's even a kitchenette so Granny, that's what I named her real name's Janina, but you don't learn names while they're alive, can keep the cookie supply coming. But all the perks in the world aren't going to make up for basic needs going unmet. Kyle has been working for Howlin Hugs for 2 years, and his life savings are, assuming the best reasonable denomination for those bills, $20.06. That's pitiful. And Kyle's words make it clear that he agrees, but he's not in a position to complain. The rest of the office, different story. See, this isn't really a story about a janitor who turns into a werewolf. This is a story about the inevitable consequence of wealth and power disparity. Kyle's story is in the background, maybe a footnote, or if it came to it, a scapegoat. Understand that an inciting incident is not the same as a cause. CEO Howl's new project was not the cause of the violence to follow, it was just the tipping point. The first domino that would end in disaster. The new project for Howlin Hugs Incorporated, the company's new direction, overtime. And not just any overtime, unpaid, overnight overtime. You have to feel for Mason, being the one charged with getting everyone on board, because as the first night shows, this project isn't launching from a stable platform. One of the first messes we have to clean up is a meltdown from one of the artists. This is night 1. Ina wouldn't have thrown a fit like this if she wasn't already stressed. And as we find in a previously inaccessible room, some of the staff have been turning to less legal or healthy methods to cope. On the second night, we find that the fish tank has been smashed, killing the office pets. Whether this was intentional or accidental, we can't be sure, but combined with the surprise birthday party that ended up with the cake and decorations on the floor, it's clear even attempts to lighten the mood are starting to fail. Enough so that by the fourth night, the portents are too clear to ignore. The room where the overtime project was announced has become the start of a revolutionary movement with placards and graffiti calling for the removal of CEO Howl, and there are suggestions for how this could be done. As if that weren't bad enough, poor management has resulted in the servers overheating and catching fire, and all after Children's Day, the mess of which was left for the staff to clean up. And where is CEO Howl? Who knows? His office is staffed by a plushy wolf and nothing else. Things get worse on the fourth night, with infestations of mold and rodents ruining the environment and contaminating the food. This is also where the first fatality, wink wink, occurs. Lack of support, lack of sleep, and an excess of pressure resulted in the death of a forklift operator. Whatever goals were intended by the overtime project, they clearly haven't been met. With actual deaths on the books, the situation can no longer be ignored. And so the next day, CEO Howl finally arrives. Whatever was said during the day, and so we never hear it, but it must not have gone over well. Maybe doubling down on the new project on the same day as a memorial for a fallen coworker was not the best optics. His attempt to rectify the situation clearly failed, but Howl can't simply leave. That would suggest he can't handle the overtime, which he couldn't. Instead of supporting his staff, Howl goes into a drunken rage before passing out on his office sofa. In the background, Granny has taken the issue up with a higher or lower power. And maybe someone down there was listening because the office has presented a message in the mascot room which clarifies their intention. To be frank, Howl would have to be a fool to come back the next night. I guess he was a fool. So how much of this is verifiable and how much is me just reading between the lines?
About 50%.
But it's worth remembering that all of this took place without Kyle's intervention, and it will still take place even if Kyle kills nobody at all. A pacifist run is the goal, after all. Kyle doesn't want to kill anyone, he just doesn't want to be killed himself or end up in a laboratory being studied. The violence that likely destroyed the Howlin' Hugs company was not brought by Kyle, it was the fault of a company that saw its employees as equipment and treated them as such. Anything Kyle does is more or less in the background. Or is it? Doesn't it seem odd that CEO Howl would come back into the office right after his effigy was knifed and his mascot's head was put on spikes? Just a bit? But what if he never saw it, because Kyle cleaned it up? Just like Kyle cleaned up the original protest, the ritual site, the forklift accident, even the evidence of Howl's overnight bender. Hell, the world may never even know what happened to Howl. His employees might completely escape justice because Kyle cleaned up that body too. Did these messages ever reach Howl's line of sight? Were they ever discovered by someone who mattered? Someone who might come in the next day to find nothing amiss except perhaps the broken fish tank? No, anything would have been word of mouth, and since no one signed their name to the protests, they clearly didn't want to be identified individually, and admitting knowledge would have done just that. This isn't to say that Kyle is directly responsible for CEO Howl's death, only to suggest that he was keeping more than his own secrets in this situation. And maybe it would have been better to leave some messes on the ground. Or maybe Howl shouldn't have tried to fix everything with a pizza party. Now, let's see who the Moose Man really is. It's Old Man Mason! So, just to check, what are all your feelings on murder? Well, okay, that's a choice. So there are two kinds of challenges in Werecleaner. You have the speedrun challenge and you have the no-kill challenge. The two challenges are independent of one another. There is no achievement or reward for pulling off a 5-star cleaning job while keeping all your coworkers' blood safely inside their bodies. But I didn't know that when I played through the game, so I accidentally pushed myself to do both at once. And to my surprise, I got some huge neon white vibes from this cute little murder avoidance game. For those who've played the Speedrunner Simulator, the fun in Neon White isn't in shooting all the targets, it's in figuring out how to get from the start to the finish as fast as possible, and so you'll be looking for shortcuts and skips to cut your time down, which is a ton of fun. Well, that's kind of the same thing you'll be doing in Werecleaner, but instead of platforming challenges, it's routing challenges. As I said, coworkers move on predetermined paths with predetermined intervals. Some cycle faster than others, but no one is just completely still. To finish the basic goal of the game, you just have to make it from start to finish. But to do it under time, you need to really know what your coworkers are doing and when they're going to do it. Kills take a few seconds to complete. After that, you have a new mess to clean up. So even if the two goals aren't linked, you'll want to avoid unnecessary murders. That means creating a plan. There's always a back hall in the upper left corner of the map that is never occupied, so it's always safe, but it's also the long way around. The more populated routes are always shorter, but they're also higher risk. And so you end up, often through bloody mistakes, creating a process by which you can hit every node and avoid every encounter, often with mere seconds to spare. This works for the same reason it works in Neon White. Runs are short. Not the sub 10-second Demon Hunts of Paradise, but short enough that you can cram several of them into an hour. A full speedrun of the game takes less than 13 minutes, and as you shave time down, each run will get shorter. To give an example, in this level, I start off walking past this mess, pausing ever so slightly to vacuum a few bits of confetti in my reach. I avoid Emma's notice and slide into this cubicle. Remember, if they're not looking right at you, they won't see you. Wait for Emma to slide past, then immediately head for the memorial. It's okay if you bump Angie a little, she won't follow you in. Clean the room, then wait for Charlie to pass by. Move through the connecting hall, let Mason pass, and shoot a trash ball to distract Samuel. Cross through the IT room into storage, narrowly avoid both Granny and Tara, then pop a bag over Granny's head so you can clean up her extracurricular activities in peace. Maybe we're afraid of the wrong monster. That done, sneak on by and make your way into the lower undead burg, which is what I started calling this dangerous mess of cubicles for some reason. Cut directly across the top to the mascot room and mutter to yourself about how it's always snakes while cleaning up a counter-argument to market research. Use the laundry room. Why is there a laundry room? And at this point, we'll cut it off, because if I had to figure it out for myself, then so do you. Also, there's an achievement for killing everyone in this level, so feel free to blow off steam if you're feeling frustrated. While this one's probably the hardest, they're all pretty fun with cool mechanics, good visuals, and some downright hilarious sound designs. Really, the only thing missing from this game is more of it. Which is why my big question now is, who owns the copyright to a student-made game? Because this needs to be expanded on. But even if we can't have more for whatever reason, what we got is a wonderful bit of fun. And with a price tag of 0, it's a gift. Enjoy it. And that's the Werecleaner, my shiny new game. Thanks for playing, everyone.